side story. So the other night I was out here and I wasn't even supposed to be out here that late. And some weirdos had pulled up on the dome. It had to be like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I jumped in the truck and drove over there. Ended up chasing them down the dirt road. So the dirt road goes out back that way. They had to know these dirt roads like the back of their hand. I chased them out the dirt road. We went back up to the highway. Down the highway, I started gaining on them on the highway. And then they stopped in the middle of the highway, did a U-turn, came back down this dirt road. They were flying down this dirt road. I was following them all the way down this dirt road. We turned on the pipeline. They lost me on pipeline because the road's just kind of crazy. Sometimes I'll stay out here.
Squatters or what?
No, they weren't squatters. They were thieves for sure. All right. And then I usually, when I do come in, it's pretty much what's going on right now. I'll run these goats off the hay here and the dogs will chase them back into their pen and then they'll eat. Trixie. Come on. So the goats are a menace, as you can see. My name's Chris. Welcome to Cascade Trails. We're a Mustang Sanctuary. I normally get here around 5:30. Sometimes it'll be a little bit sooner, it depends. But my routine's pretty much the same every morning. I'll have to get the goats because they're terrorizing something. And then I'll check the pasture. I'll grab the rake and the fork. Most of the time I just need the fork, but I'll immediately check waters. I'll go and make sure that the well's on. I see the water's on now because somebody else is here. They've been here for a little bit maybe. So I'll help clean up the pasture and then I'll throw hay. And usually the routine takes about till 8 o'clock. And that's if I'm doing it by myself. But we've got a few wheelbarrows over here, so I'll grab a wheelbarrow and a fork and I'll go in and start picking up the manure. While I'm in, I'll usually make my way around some of these horses just to check them out and see how they're doing. I've got some old horses and some other horses that are hard keepers, so I just want to make sure they're doing all right. They haven't gotten themselves into any trouble overnight. Most of the horses here are pretty chill. We do have some horses that are not Mustangs. We've got 6 horses that are domestic horses, 2 off-the-track thoroughbreds, 2 Belgian drafts, and I've got 2 Tennessee Walker crosses. One is a full Tennessee Walker, but so most of the time I come in and I can basically see everybody. I get a head count. There are 26 horses out here, so I'll get a head count real quick and make sure that all 26 are still out here. Then I'll check and see who's doing what. But mostly just get the manure up fairly quickly so that I can throw hay. And again, if I have help in the morning, I get a jump start on this. It doesn't take me, a couple hours to do it. But I can get it done in probably an hour and a half or so. While I'm out here, like I said, I'll just observe the horses, make sure everybody's doing okay. We do have a young little baby out here. She's 2 months on the 1st, so I like to check in with her. This is one of the drafts here. She's a sweetheart. But it's pretty good so far. Sometimes you'll see they congregate in certain areas and they're pretty much there all night, so the manure is not super spread out. I found out if you pick up the manure, you keep the pasture clean, it's much better for their hooves. Hoof care is extremely important with horses. The best way to keep their hooves healthy is to have a good diet and make sure they're not walking around in their manure. Most of the horses here, actually all of the horses here, are barefoot. They don't come barefoot. Some of the domestics that we've brought in, they came with shoes. So we'll unshoe them and then start doing corrective trimming on their feet. A lot of these horses come with some type of trauma. You know, Mustangs, the first encounter with humans they get is the helicopter chasing them into the chutes. And then from the chutes, they're run onto the trailer. I get a lot about the other thing is with manure, you gotta check your horse's manure. That'll help you determine whether or not they need to be dewormed. But it's really just chewed up grass. So a lot of people are like, oh, you touched the poop. But you do have to check it. You want to see what's in there. What are they eating? Are they eating anything from out here? All this stuff is just really grass. So I'm checking to make sure there's no worms in here. They don't need to be dewormed yet. And it really does just washes off, but some people are kind of finicky about that. Aside from that, the majority of our horses here are trained, they're already started. Once we get them, depending on where they're at, obviously the Mustangs, it takes a little bit to connect with them. You've got to establish some trust first so they know you're not trying to eat them. And then if you're consistent with your communication and what you're asking, they come around fairly quickly. Some faster than others, but for the majority of these horses, they've all pretty much been started. We got another draft behind you here, and then I'll show you one of the little Mustangs. You can see how fast they learn. This little Mustang's been with us about 6 months. She already knows how to do tricks and everything. Rain, come here. Good girl. Not you, Munchie. Not you. Come here, Rain. So I'll get her to smile. She just does it off of a cue with her lip. She probably thinks she's gonna get a treat. Smile. Good girl. And this is an untouched horse. She came from the Oregon Bureau of Land Management. Most of these Mustangs, you can see they have what's called a freeze brand here on their neck. And it's really like hieroglyphics. The U is for the United States. All of them will have that underlying number or the digits here. This is specific for this horse. But just putting hands on them, letting them know that we're not gonna do anything to harm them. And you can totally tell when a horse is feeling good. You're watching their lips. And once the lips are very telling on how the horse is feeling. So if I get a good spot for her, watch those lips start to curl out. It's just like a big old dog. She likes that. So I've got another little one here coming over. She's the first little baby Mustang we've had born out here. Thundercloud is her name. She's inquisitive, but she's still kind of flighty. Come here. Not you, Munchie. So most of these horses will end up coming to their names, or they'll get used to it. And with the baby, you really just want to start putting hands on them as soon as you can. This is called imprinting. I want her to know that humans can touch her and it's not dangerous. And then while I'm doing that, I'm also gonna do little stuff like pick her feet up, give them back to her. She had a run in with the fence here. Super funny girl. She's really smart though. And this is Wildfire. Wildfire is one of the walkers that I was telling you about. She's a Tennessee walker. So she's not a Mustang. But as you can see, if you leave the wheelbarrow long enough, they'll just start playing with it. So normally what I'll do, I'll make my rounds, picking up manure, checking on the different horses just to see who's doing what and where they're at. And it looks pretty good. So I'll get everything clear from the areas that I'm gonna throw hay. Once I get all those areas clear, Then I'll toss hay. The other thing is I use the creosotes here. Almost all horse places they hate rattlesnakes being in their pasture. So I'll use these creosotes to dump my manure in. That keeps the mice out of my pasture, which keeps the rattlesnakes out of my pasture. Once I get that all picked up, which is pretty good right now, then I'm gonna throw hay. You wanna come with me to throw some hay? Cascade Trails is a Mustang Sanctuary, which means Mustangs come here from auction, they come here from owner surrender, they come here from neglect. They also come if they're deemed dangerous. So we take all Mustangs, and once they get here, we don't rehome them. We don't rehabilitate and sell them. This is a sanctuary, so they're here permanently. And it's pretty much the same for other horses. We've had a few other horses come through, domestic horses. Sometimes we home them until the owner gets into a better situation, but it's only domestics. The sanctuary is set up specifically for Mustangs, so once they get here, they never have to leave. But we opened our doors for horses, and really all kind of animals started coming. We got turkeys and chickens and goats. We've had a couple dogs dropped off. We even have a resident raven. So the sanctuary opened up specifically for Mustangs, but we ended up opening the doors to all animals. And I mean, it's been pretty good. They get along well, everybody kind of meshes together. And I think it's working out as far as like having people out, and just the whole vibe is really cool because the horses, I think they believe this is their second chance. So they want to prove themselves, and the animals, including the dogs and the goats and stuff, they all kind of feel the same way. So it's been really nice. All right, so now I'm gonna grab a few bales of hay and toss them out there. We'll usually do hay in the morning, and then because it's summertime, we've limited our trail rides to just the evening. So we do sunset rides, and we'll grain them out at night. Once they finish their morning hay, then we'll go ahead on and give them grain at night. We'll throw out the flakes for them after that last trail ride. It's pretty crazy how these dogs can get up here. Come on, Trigger. Good boy. Come on, Apple. So, I try to get it from the top here and kind of let the bales slowly work. That's it. Good girl. Only thing with the hay, it's like the best hiding spot for the chickens. So we try to collect the eggs mostly, but if you come over here, sometimes we don't find the eggs. So we end up with little chicks, because they just burrow up in there wherever. So I'll stage these, because feeding time is really a frenzy for the horses. Mars, you want to pull this barrel and do underneath over there? Thank you. So when I go out, I'll drop probably about four bales each feeding, and I try to separate it. as much as possible. In the wild, horses graze, they cover about 30 miles a day. So I do my best to put these feeders and set up their feeding positions to where they have to do a little bit of walking. Or when they rotate, they've got to move around a little bit. And there usually is a hierarchy, but I try to make sure they're not so hungry that they're just running up here and trying to devour it or push each other off. Some of them will get pushed off, but kind of just the nature of it. I've been to places where they feed horses different. Some of these working barns, their horses are like extreme athletes. They feed them 40 pounds of hay per day. They weigh the flakes out. They make sure they only get 20 pounds in the morning, 20 pounds in the evening. Here I kind of just let them eat what they want. There's no real strict diet. Unless I've got a horse that's a really hard keeper like this one here, then they all have access to the hay. So there's a huge difference with imprinting a horse, where they have the opportunity to get touched by people and realize that the string is not dangerous, scratching her and touching her in spots that she's gonna have to be scratched and touched in anyway. And you'll see once I start making her feel like she's being groomed, she'll try to groom me. See how she's reaching over to groom me? It's like trying to return the favor. So most of the time, I'll give her a little bit of extra time in the morning. I really want her to get used to this hay string I got and not feel threatened by it in any way. So I'll put it on her. She'll run off. Yeah, she got a little scared. And this is Mom here. But as much as I can, I'll try to get my hands on her in the morning. And I'll do that a few times throughout the day. I'm gonna throw one more bale on this side. The majority of these horses, once they trust you, they'll let you do anything, really. They'll go wherever you ask them. And I mean, some of the language has changed. Back in the olden days where they had to break, 120 horses in a summer, they were just trying to get the job done. So they were tying horses' legs and laying them down and putting halters on, and that's what they knew how to do. That's how they learned how to do it. But when you have time and you're not crunched trying to get it all done in one summer, you can actually connect with the horse in a way that you don't even call it breaking anymore. You start them. You connect with them, you build a solid foundation, and then you're building on top of that foundation for the rest of that horse's life. We'll do one more of these. I think the beauty in working with horses is it really does make you move slower. You got to be mindful of where you are, so it gives you a sense of awareness. They're really big animals, so sometimes when you're out there feeding, if you don't have your head on a swivel and they're trying to run from each other, they can run right into you. They've knocked me over a few times. This little one right here, I've had her since she was 4 months old, and I've never put a halter on her, never put a lead rope on her, nothing. And I'm getting her to the point where she'll just stand. I want her to not be afraid of this rope here. And although she's about to be 3, she's still on the small side. So the way we start here, the first thing we do is start putting weight on them when they're ready to get weight. She's a little afraid of this. So and it's feeding time. It's pretty interesting. Some of these horses, their attitudes and their demeanors will change. After a few weeks here, some of them it takes a few months. For example, this horse over here, her name is Phoenix. Phoenix came and she was horrified of people. She had a really bad experience. We got her out of a kill pen. And she just didn't trust people at all. So she didn't want anything to do with us. She didn't want to let anyone touch her. But it's been about 6 months and she's starting to come around.